Next is a good colleague from the other chamber, Senator Lou Raptakis, who, if those of you who don't know Lou, makes the best pizza in Rhode Island. And I can attest to that because I've tasted it. Senator Raptakis, welcome to the House.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As long as you didn't mention the name, I won't get a bill for advertising, correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, my colleagues on the House side. It's a pleasure to be here to talk about the bill in front of you. And I'm very passionate about this issue. Being a business owner for 36 years, I probably know a little bit about the minimum wage. And since 2001, I've been introducing legislation to try to tie the minimum wage to the consumer price index so we wouldn't have this debate. None of us would be here today if legislation would have passed. I remember back in 2008, we did pass the Senate. It ended up in this committee, but a no-go. I've handed out a packet of information to the members, and very important, when you do have time, please look through it because there is a lot of technical information that would probably answer a lot of your questions. And there was a commentary back in 2001 that read commentary, common sense minimum wage proposal. I wish we would have done it because we have the federal government, Bureau of Labor Statistics, that would tell us what the minimum wage should be every year. Not this random increasing it $1, $2, whatever the case might be in the last few years. And I'm very passionate, and I know some of the earlier speakers, I'm the guy that was on Capitol TV that talked about the minimum wage, but we're talking about small business here in Rhode Island. Increases that are unacceptable. $2.35, the minimum wage has been risen in the last 2 years. That's 31%. Never in Rhode Island history has the minimum wage gone up in 2 years. $2.35 or 31%. When you look around, do you see rent, automobiles, homes, food going up 31% in the last 2 years? There'd be a revolution in this state. Nobody would afford to live in this state. And it's very, very important that we look in your packet. The Bureau of Labor Statistics comes out every year, and it's divided into certain regions, which our region is the Providence, Warwick, Fall River region. And it comes out with stats, and it tells you every year what the cost of food, clothing, rent, fuel is. If we would have applied that every year to a CPI with some protection of not going over 50 cents in every given year, our job is done. And I think Representative Giarrusso, you said it perfect. Where did this 1010 come from? We hear that we want to compete with Connecticut and Massachusetts. Connecticut and Massachusetts got out of the recession a lot faster than we did. They can afford to pay minimum wage at a high rate because their unemployment is very low. They have competitive businesses. And going back to small business that I have been doing for 36 years, I don't want to be compared to Subway or to the Wall Street box stores. Compare me with the earlier speaker, Greg's Restaurant. They're a small business, the backbone of this state. We're not CEOs making millions of dollars. And I'll give you a perfect example. If you have a small business that, say, employs 5 employees, and they're paid $10 an hour above the minimum wage, last year alone, that small business owner had to increase his wages, 5 employees, 40 hours a week, it's $200 a week, times 52 weeks. That small business had to incur another $10,400 increase in his payroll. We didn't count workers' compensation. We didn't count state and federal taxes that have to be matched. Substantial increase, and now we're looking at another $1, $1.10. So that small business, for an example, it would have cost them at least $25,000 to $30,000 an increase in payroll minimum for just 5 employees. Big issue here is that when we look at this type of legislation, who are we hurting? We're going to hurt the youngsters, 16 to 19-year-olds, because those are the inexperienced individuals entering the job market for the first time. So when you hear at $9, $10 an hour, you know who's going to come back into the workforce? Retirees. They're going to say, why can't I work for 10 or 15 hours a week and make this extra change, pocket change of dollars or whatever, it's not going to hurt my retirement because it probably falls under the cap. But we're really going to put those individuals permanently unemployed. Nobody's going to hire an inexperienced 16 to 19-year-old. And we do have laws in Rhode Island where a 19-year-old, 16 to 19-year-olds that work in a nonprofit earn 90% of the minimum wage. I believe right now it's about $8.10. We should also look at maybe categorizing the different populations. You know, we've heard testimony earlier also about folks cannot live on a minimum wage. It's not to live on. If we want to have this debate, let's introduce legislation and call it a living wage, $15, $18 an hour, but you're going to have to be a family of 3, a family of 4, whatever the case might be, to have responsibility. And I think what we're really doing here is we're really, really out of control. Back in 2001, only one state had a CPI, Consumer Price Index, and that was the state of Washington. Today, there's 11 states that do not debate the minimum wage. I really, Mr. Chairman, would like to see legislation, which I've introduced this afternoon, a bill which increases the minimum wage again for I think about the 9th year in a row, and use the CPI index. And that is in your packet. It's information going back that comes out from the Bureau of Labor Statistics every year, March 1st. We know what the Consumer Price Index was for this particular region only, and we adopt to that increase. And we say every January, we look back at last year's Consumer Price Index and apply it. This way, it gives small businesses a fair warning. We do it for Social Security. It's called COLA. It's in your packet. Federal government raises Social Security every single year under the cost of living. Why not do it that way? Be fair to everyone, to small business, and be fair to everyone. But when I hear some of the issues about comparing us to corporate America, to Subway, McDonald's, Burger King, they can afford it. Small businesses, we can't afford it because it's another burden in the field. And this is why small businesses are struggling in Rhode Island. And when you see a lot of empty stores, this is one of the reasons why we have an uncontrollable minimum wage increase. Like I said, $2.35 in the last 2 years, 31% increase. And I think if you really want to end the debate of the minimum wage, adopt the Consumer Price Index and let it go. We're done. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator. Any questions for our esteemed colleague from the Senate? Representative McKiernan.
Senator, a very quick question. If you know, you seem to be knowledgeable on the topic. Small business employees versus the large companies, the big box stores, the McDonald's, the whatever, how many, when it breaks down to those who are getting minimum wage, do we know how much is a small business versus some of the bigger employers?
I'm not sure. I think we'd have to probably look at maybe the Department of Labor and Training and ask them, that entity, for the statistics, because, again, corporate America has the resources to give these numbers. I mean, a small business, I wouldn't be able to tell you right now how many of the small business in Rhode Island employ those that earn minimum wage. But I'll tell you one fact. If you look back last year at the Providence Journal, they came out with a PolitiFact, and the question was, the average age of minimum wage workers is 35 years old. That was mostly false. Mostly false. It's a good article to read. It's dated, I believe, June 23rd, 2014.
Senator, did you give us copies in your packet of that article?
I will give you, I have one copy here, and I will give it to the clerk, because
Please.
It really looked at some of the statistics that were given here in earlier testimony and found most of those statistics false. So I know they're right in that game, so they really crunch the numbers. But I think we should really look, my argument is look at fact, not fantasy or fiction, when we decide what the minimum wage is. And you pointed out earlier, well, 10.10. Why not? Let's make it $12 an hour. Forget about the 10.10. Why? Let's look at facts and figures.
Thank you.